In this video, we'll look at who, how, and where to teach. In my over 20 years as a volunteer literacy tutor, I've found a number of ways to find students and volunteers. I give out reading grade level tests to almost every parent I meet and offer to give it for them if they wish. A brief summary of the number of students reading below grade level and the fact that how well you read is more highly correlated with earnings than IQ usually convinces most of them to give the grade level test to see where their kids stand. I have also used greatschools.org to find not so great schools in my area. In areas like Detroit, the city with the lowest literacy rates in the nation, with only 6% reading proficiently, and Baltimore, where a recent article showed that there were 6 Baltimore schools without a single proficient student, it is easier to find students. But there are students and schools everywhere that need help. I've taught the syllables material to students as young as kindergarten, to children of all ages, and to adults. You can print the materials for less than $5 per student, including a folder to put them in. You can use YouTube Red to play the videos. Eventually, a DVD will also be available to purchase. I usually teach in a mixed age class. When I've taught the class to students in low-performing schools, the teachers have identified students needing help and sent home flyers and permission slips. I've taught these group classes in the schools themselves and in nearby community centers. There are plenty of places to teach. Be creative. I've taught in schools, libraries, and community centers. In Los Angeles, I taught at a facility for formerly homeless moms. The children there had been in and out of Los Angeles public schools. As a former military family, we've moved a lot, and I have taught classes in several different states. Once we were in an area long enough to settle in, I would enlist the help of interested friends to help set up the group classes. I found people to volunteer by asking friends and asking at church. Also, when I taught at community centers, some of the community center staff would usually help out with the classes. It is best to have at least one volunteer for every 3 to 4 students, and the more the better, especially for the first few lessons. The quick teach-do cycle of the class makes it easy for volunteers to work with the students. You can reassure your volunteers that it will be easy to help. They only have to help students with what has just been taught in the video. One note about volunteers. You need to make volunteering a privilege. Teens make great volunteers for the whole class, and younger children who are reading at least the 6th grade level can help out with the first 5 or 6 lessons if there are students younger than them. You need to be reading at least the 10th grade level to help out with lessons 7 to 10. Parents and grandparents are usually good volunteers, but you have to make sure you lay out discipline styles and expectations at the beginning. I found that moms and grandmas who have raised 3 or more kids have been the best helpers, good at both teaching and classroom management. I once inadvertently paired a volunteer whose native language was not English with a student with speech difficulties. Big mistake. You need to have your best volunteers match with any student with additional challenges, and make sure someone whose first language is not English is matched with a student who doesn't have any challenges. You can recruit volunteers of all ages by explaining that while they're teaching, they will also improve their own spelling and writing abilities. Teens may be further motivated by the fact that it may also improve their own reading speed and SAT scores. An upcoming video I'm working on called Train Your Brain to Read Faster explains how and why this may happen. Once you have people to help and a place to teach, you need a plan. Here are several different schedules you could use as you work with the schedules of your volunteers in your teaching location. The first schedule we'll look at is 12 one-hour sessions. The first day is an hour of testing. The 2nd through 11th days are each about an hour of teaching exercises and games. The last game of each class is a fun letter game that only requires a few volunteers to monitor, freeing up the rest to gather up the class folders and clean up the facility you're using. You can modify the 12-day class to 10 days if you have parents give the MWIA and reading grade level test to their children before the first lesson and after the 9th lesson. Then allocate the first few minutes of the first and last class to collect scores and quickly give the test to any children whose parents forgot or had trouble giving the test. The next schedule breaks up the 10 lessons of material into 6 days. The first day lasts 1 hour and 45 minutes, the last 2 hours and 15 minutes, and the middle 4 an hour and a half each. The time for the first and last day may be a bit shorter or longer depending on how many volunteers you have to give the tests and how experienced they are using the testing materials. The next schedule is 4 days, approximately 2.5 hours each, with the last day 3.5 hours long. The final sample schedule is 3 days, the first 2 days 3 hours and 15 minutes, and the last day 4 hours and 15 minutes. This schedule is best over Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or else Monday, Wednesday, and Friday with a long 4-hour day on Friday when the students do not have to squeeze in time for homework. The schedule you will want to use will depend on the facility you're using and the schedule availability of your volunteers and students. If you want each day of the schedule to be the same length, you can extend break and snack times accordingly. If you're using a schedule with more than 1 lesson per day, the second and subsequent break should include a bit of movement if possible, especially for young students. A bit of recess will help the brain take a break and be ready to focus on the lessons upon return to class. Now, we'll go over the general class flow, how each class will go. The first class, you will be doing testing first with students who are not being tested, coloring in their vowel and consonant charts. You should leave at least one volunteer to monitor the students who are coloring. After this, each class starts with a few minutes of instruction in the video, followed by reading of the documents in the student folder or doing some exercises like the syllable division exercise. And all these you should have in the folder. Work for the allotted amount of time stated in the video, with each volunteer helping a few students read a few words or do the exercises, and then sound out a few of the words they've divided in their exercise. There is also a list of the time for each exercise or worksheet on the first page of the sample schedules document linked on the Syllables Spell Success page. The most important thing for the volunteers to focus on is getting the students to sound out every sound from left to right. They can help the students look up the sounds in the one-page chart if they need help with a sound. The last several lessons also have some language worksheets for the volunteers to help students complete and words from Webster's Speller to help the students read. Then there are games. During game time, a few of the volunteers should take students aside one at a time and do the nonsense word fluency tracking for that lesson. The final game only needs a volunteer or two to monitor, so the rest of the volunteers can finish up the fluency tracking and then help clean up the classroom. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, comment, and I'll include answers in how to teach number 10. Or if it's a short question that I can answer fast, I'll dash off an answer in the comments below.